what do you call those UTVs or whatever. I was like, dude, what about this machine? He said, first of all, call it right. Call it what it is.
we had to show him how to flush a toilet.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what happens when you use composting toilets up here. No, things are going good in terms of the podcasting realm, but like everybody else, and I've been comparing a lot of notes as of late, it seems as if, look, if I got a superpower of anything, it's my ability to see patterns. And it's one thing that I've been noticing. Joel, as both of you probably well know, just wrote a book called The Homesteading Tsunami. Yep. So with that understanding, I'm sure all of you realize, like I do, that there are record numbers like nothing ever seen in humanity's history. Well, to make it relevant, that would be over the last 80 to 100 years. But somehow, despite that homesteading revolution and tsunami that we have going on, record numbers, anybody that's doing anything worthwhile in the preparedness, permaculture, or practical living space, who isn't just doing fear, buy these 5 things or you're going to die, every one of us are being suppressed. So to answer your question, on YouTube, we're kind of meandering along just like everybody else is. And I've not asked you to any of these questions, but in the podcast realm, it's more of a meritocracy because people are actually going out there saying, hey, go listen to this program, go listen to this guy, go listen to this or listen to that. So it seems like that our last bastion of free speech still exists, at least in the podcast realm. Sorry about the long-winded answer, but that's it in a nutshell.
Plus, when you post that link to the podcast on social media, that social media has no idea what that link goes to. So it can't really data mine that because it's not going to listen to that podcast. So you can put that in front of all your subscribers on every social media platform as well.
Yep. Permacast Backwoods just says, I'm currently on a shadow ban on TikTok. I got live streaming capacity on TikTok, which was hard for me. And the third one I did, I was streaming how to make deviled eggs. They pulled me down for hate speech, put me on a 4-day suspension. I appealed it. I was still suspended. Still have no idea what I said. I'm pretty sure it was the word devil.
You know what's crazy in like a video that we just put out recently, and it was I don't know if anybody in the chat or if you guys have seen it. Like I said, noticing patterns, that's what we do in permaculture, and it pretty much applies to every part of my life. Michelle and I, for those that don't know, are my wife, we were being attacked. And when I say attacked, y'all, I'm a journeyman electrician, been one for 27 years with the IBEW. So we looked at all of the electronic things that could have potentially been happening. I reached out to engineers, and I'm finding out what happened there. And then on YouTube, man, it just hit a point of critical mass with us where I reached out and I did every mitigation strategy that I could. And you guys might want to know about some of these. And then there was another person that hit me up and said, hey, dude, I wonder if some people put some hellhounds on your trail, people that are assigned to you. These are people that deal with spiritual warfare and things of the like. Well, strangely enough, here's how crazy it is in terms of things going on. That video, as the time I'm speaking to you right now, has about 10,000 views, which is really, really good for us as of late. Has 1,000 comments, but only 10,000 views. So even these things are being, I mean, it doesn't even matter where it is. If you're out there doing anything good, which you two are, and I haven't even asked you yet, but I 100% guarantee every single person out there that I know that is attempting to do good, whether in the religious realm or in the secular realm, you are being lambasted unless you're keeping people on either one side or the other. Either you're Republican, Democrat, black, white, blah, 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 blah. If you don't take a side, I guarantee you're being suppressed. And I'm wondering, John, you're kind of the king of suppression. So,
we've been getting about between 80 and 120,000 views when we do our live feed. When I get off, that's the number. And somebody they show up out of the blue all the time. Are you for Israel or Palestine? And I'm like, I'm for America. And as soon as you say that, I'm like, we had somebody called The Ghost, and he has a YouTube channel. I don't remember what the channel was, but he has 3 million subscribers. And as soon as I said the Israel thing, they're like, oh, you're anti-Semitic. And we had thousands of comments show in, just bombarding. We were banning, all the moderators were banning all these guys. And they just kept coming back with the exact same account, almost like we couldn't ban them. But there was I mean, it went on for an hour probably. I did a 3-hour live feed that night. And of course, that's great for the numbers, all the comments coming through and the traffic, and it really opens it up. And we always gain subscribers when that happens. But when that happens, you know you're on the right track. You know you're on the right path when you get that kind of attention from people that don't like what you're doing. But yeah, we see.
Yeah, or if you're not polarized, you know, a magnet only works if it's polarized. You know.
Yeah, good point.
The quickest way to depolarize a magnet is to hit it with a hammer, and then all of a sudden there's no polarity. Well, I think that's what the powers that shouldn't be fear the most about people like us, is that, John, if they were to ask me the same question, I would have, without a doubt, well, certainly I have an opinion on this, and I'll keep it to myself because I don't want to torpedo anybody's thing right now, but it isn't with the powers that shouldn't be. I'm not for this side. I'm not for that side. At the end of the day, I'm worried about the things. And, you know, honestly, a lot of it came because I listen to y'all's podcasts. I listen to your lives, whether it's with Jack or with Bear or anybody else. I listen. I don't always have time to respond, but I do listen to them, and usually in the podcast realm. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm with that. But as long as you're not polarized, as long as you're in the middle, and for somebody like me, I hope people don't take this the wrong way, but I've dealt with this in the past when I was doing talk radio back in the day, is if you're one side, left or right, the system will champion you, because no matter which side you're leading up that triangle, let me get like where people can actually see it. Doesn't matter whether you're from the left or the right, you're still advancing to that apex. But when you're in the middle, it kind of shoots everything out of its way. Well, so
they need you on a team. They need you to pick a side, because that keeps you fighting amongst yourselves, right? Because if we all united, we would realize who that real enemy is. And it's the guy at the top, right? That's what would overthrow governments. That's what would overthrow tyrants. And it's the bread and circuses. Somebody sent me something a little while ago today about football and such. And that's the modern day bread and circuses, right? My team. Like, I didn't see you playing, not that I looked, but like the owner of those teams doesn't care which team you're voting for. They still get part of the concessions, and the same company makes all the jerseys. You're wearing another man's name on your back. Like, I'm for team us. Like, I'm not Republican. I'm not Democrat. I'm not libertarian, which is completely melted. I mean, they made a great decision there. Holy shit. And like, they're like, Trump. I'm like, yes, Trump. I agree with you, because my life was better those 4 years. But he still did a lot of shit, and he promised a lot. Like, Hillary ain't in jail. Like, it's the same as the World Wrestling Federation. And the answer is grow food, raise your children, create something so great that your kids want to be a part of it. Stop warehousing our elderly. Like, we know what the answers are. We don't need 1,000 laws. There's 10 of them.
Yeah, take your children out of that programming, because the programming they're getting in the schools is forcing them to be very uncomfortable if you don't pick a side, right?
That's right.
Because, I mean, so we talked about the mRNA ban in vegetables on the show with Jack. And I have had people, because I pulled out a short related to that, people upset because that's a total lie that would even ever happen. And I'm like, well, go listen to the hearings. And they're like, well, those people are lying. I'm like, okay, if they're lying, hold them accountable then. And they haven't listened to the hearings. They're spouting back talking points, and they're mad because I'm not taking a side specifically.
Yeah, the craziest thing about that happened in Tennessee. I'm sure it's happened other places also. Like, they banned chemtrails. Do we think they really ban chemtrails? Do they control the federal airspace, the airspace? But we do have clouds. Like, since that has happened, there are real clouds. So maybe it has slowed it down or something. But the beauty of that mRNA vegetable vaccination hearing, they had to admit that it's on the shelf. They are doing it. They want a law that says how much of what is in there, because you might have a small child eat a full serving and you might have an adult. They had to admit, yes, we are doing this. It is on the shelf in the grocery stores right now.
Well, it's, you know, at the end of the day, it's not red state. It's not blue state. It's the state against you. That's what they don't want us to figure out. And the beauty about, I'm glad you brought that thing up in Tennessee, is because how many times have either one of you said, you told a normie out there, look up in the sky. Does that look normal to you? It's just a contrail, blah, 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 blah. Well, all of a sudden, when Tennessee passed that, it gave legs to the notion that this might not be an accident, because now all of a sudden, if they pass legislation on it, even the most brain dead normie out there has got to start asking critical questions and saying, okay, they passed a law regarding this thing that I thought was imagination. Oh, this is legit. So just like with the, like you were talking about it a moment ago, Nicole, with the mRNA in the food and then its supply, and it's all these people who would ordinarily dismiss things like this are, I think it's almost going to have to force them to ask critical questions, but that doesn't even happen until you hit that crucible of really hard times. And any decadent society, which is like ours, I mean, you don't get any more decadent than this. I mean, Bum's got the new Jordans and a brand new phone. So we didn't hit that. So until we get, oh, I'm sorry, Nicole, I can't call them now. You're in California right now, which you probably ought to tell everybody. You're out in California. I can't call them bums.
Yeah, unhoused neighbors is what you have to refer to them as.
I'm going to use the words I use, man. It gets me in trouble sometimes. It's okay.
until we hit that crucible of really hard times, nobody's going to wake up. I mean, we can sit here and do this 30 ways to Sunday, but at the end of the day, I have to constantly remind myself, despite all this weird stuff that's going on, just like this shirt says, it's not even one of mine, but it says it all: grow food, build stuff, repeat.
Neat.
And you don't even need your own property to do it.
Yeah. Something I love about the work you do is you're documenting your journey. As I mean, like if I think about your story, like you radically changed your life by transitioning into the lifestyle you're in now, and you share what's working, and you're not afraid to admit when things don't work. And so what I've noticed with the homestead tsunami is the channels that are doing best are the ones that it's just all like pretty lambs in the pasture with a flower. And that doesn't teach people how hard it actually is when you get out there, or what it feels like when you have to, like, I assisted my first births this year. I had 2 stillborn that I had to pull. If I didn't pull them, the animal was going to die. So, I'm not heartless. I'm not just going to let that nature happen. Right. That's not me. But that wasn't easy psychologically. And I think it's a very rewarding lifestyle. I think growing your food is the best way to start adding a level of security in your life that enables you to prosper, because you have the most basic needs covered. But at the same time, it's not like I'm gonna the word just go out on a homestead, grow my own food, and join a community, and everything is going to be easy. It's not. It's work every day.
That's exactly why, as of late, I've been trying to, I haven't been calling them this, but you can see a general theme over a lot of the videos that I've been doing as of late, notwithstanding the one that we did on Friday, which was about spiritual warfare and stuff like that, things that we were personally and are personally going through. If you guys want to talk about some of the ways I mitigated some of the electronic attacks, we can cover that at some point also. But to your point, the general theme that you'll see in a lot of the shorts, because I know YouTube is favoring shorts, so I've been doing more of them because people are on the go, or they just don't have the attention span like we used to do. We used to have once upon a time. So in these shorts, the theme you'll see is bite-sized pieces of preparedness, whether I'm covering, hey, think about the avenues of approach on your property. Instead of getting rid of that multi-floor rose that's caught up in your fence, maybe you want to leave it there, because any would-be marauder is going to think twice about crawling over that stuff, or a bunch of blackberries that A, you can eat, B, is going to act like natural tanglefoot that's going to wipe you out. Or if it's saying, hey, you're caught up in an HOA, they're telling you can't have chickens. Well, tell everybody your chickens identify as dogs. They tell you you can't have a dog, you can't have a chicken tractor out there. Well, it's a doghouse because my chickens identify as dogs. I've been telling everybody since Jack Spearco, do this, and they keep complaining to me, oh, I don't have options. Look, if a guy can go out there and claim he's a trans-testicle polar bear, you can claim your chickens and sheep identify as dogs. What are they going to do about it?
Emotional support animals.
Bam. And then you get a medical, you can go out there. I was just told yesterday, you can actually get a medical card for this. So, hey, these are my sheep, but just happen to be my medical support animals. You can't do anything about it. The HOA can't do anything about it. Maybe you can't leave. Maybe you can't sell that house. So everything we're doing as of late, I'm not calling it preparedness, but that's exactly what we're doing, because I can see the writing on the wall. And instead of doing the gratuitous vulgarity that so many former good YouTube channels were doing, they've now engaged into this fear because they know YouTube will favor the algorithm. So I'm doing it in my own kind of way, knowing full well that it's not, that I know all the things I would have to do to go out there and sell this thing and get 1 million views or whatever else. I'm not going to do it. And I know you guys aren't engaging in it, and I'm not going to, but that's really the general thing that we've been doing as of late. And yes, like to your point, once again, Nicole, instead of talking about, hey, look at this beautiful thing, because whether it's on Instagram or YouTube, it's always worry about your beautiful thumbnail and do all this and all that. Look, man, get loose or get lost. If you're not tuning in to learn how to do something, then I'm not the guy for you. If you're tuning in for the pictures, and if you're not tuning in because every quarter I try to do the things I got wrong, to your point exactly, to demonstrate, even though some people might look at me as something of an expert regarding some of this stuff, y'all know as well as I do, there is no way you're not going to have dead animals, dead chickens, dead sheep, dead trees, dead whatever. If you do this, you are going to have colossal failures. So you got to get with it.
Yep. And you are an expert on a lot of shit, man. I see myself. I got 5 videos just went up, and I'm like, when we went back and watched them, I'm like, holy shit, that is Billy Bond speaking through me.
Bro, I thought, honestly, I've watched your video, the one you sent me of y'all doing that tree class, and I was as happy as a puppy with 2 Peters, man, because I'm like, first of all, you soak things in like a sponge, because a lot of times, generally, when you teach somebody something, you got to go through it several times. And it's mind boggling how I know you've only heard this thing one time. And then I know you know it because you're not just saying what I said, you're putting it in a way that you understood it and the way you can make other people understand it. So it was a joy to watch you go out there and, lay it all out, bro. So it is a real joy to see that. So it's a joy to watch both of you. I listen to Nicole's podcast every time I get a chance. And I listen to your interviews with Scully as often as I can. And it's funny because neither one of your YouTube videos ever pop up. Mm-hmm. I don't get notifications when you guys do anything. I got to go looking for it. Whereas in the YouTube, where in the podcast space, I kind of know that it's out there because it's at the top of the list. So I'm learning from y'all as well.
So yeah, I think that's the thing that makes the audio grow faster for me than video, is that everybody who subscribes to my podcast, if they're using a podcatcher on their phone, it just pushes out to them and then it's just in their feed. So I have found that to be where I do best growing, as opposed to, on the YouTube or TikTok. The reason my TikTok account finally got the capacity to stream was that I jumped in on a Gen X thing and made a bunch of Gen X jokes, which is, I do that, but really what am I doing here? What I think is interesting though because I was just at a homesteading event on a relatively new property in Tennessee. There were just like 12 people there. And I looked at the age in the room and it was, 45 to 65. So the other thing I'm seeing is that's an age window I'm seeing a lot of. There are definitely younger homesteaders, but it's almost like the second youth has arrived for that wave of people, and they're seeing the instability and going like, I'm going back to the land because grandma and grandpa used to do that, and that makes more sense. And when I was a kid, I hung out, and I'm going to learn to do these things.
Oh, good night, man. That's dead air, man. That's bad news in the radio realm. Hey, do you guys want to hear about some of the mitigation strategies as far as the electrical stuff?
Yeah.
All right, check this out. I told you I was being hit. I didn't know where I was being hit. Just to give you a basis of understanding, it got so bad. I was having unbelievable panic attacks. My hands would turn almost white because they were so cold. And I'm like, okay, this makes no sense. And so I was like, okay, I understand grounding. Let me get on the ground and go try that. And then after a while, and while reciting Psalm 91, in time, it would go away. And then all of a sudden, Michelle started having the same. You guys know my wife, man. She's as hard as 3 times 9. I mean, she's as physically fit as anybody could ever hope to be, especially for a middle-aged woman. She's got more curves than a goat pass, and she's strong. And
I love his metaphors.
I mean, what I'm saying is that she's indefinitely good. So it's not as if she ate a bunch of ding dongs or something and she's having some bad attack like I would if I were hanging out with John and having dessert first. Like, so it started. Here's the crazy thing. It would hit her and then me, and it was like it was on a schedule. It would never hit us both at the same time. I mean, she was so debilitated. She would literally I've made her lay on the ground completely naked, full body grounding. And then I would pray Psalm 91 over her, and then in time it would go away. So I'm like, okay, knowing what I know, I think we're being gang stalked. That's what I first thought it was, electronically gang stalked. So I'm like, okay, from the electrical standpoint, let me see what I can do here. So first thing I did, I wish I brought it up to me. Hopefully, if I have to run out and go pee-pee at some point, I'll go get this meter so everybody can find it. I got every meter known to man, whether it checks RF, radio frequency, or whether it checks electronic dirty energy, which being a journeyman electrician for 27 years, you would think that having been in that space and having installed dirty power as opposed to clean power and knowing the difference between the two, you would have thought that I would have come up with this after a while, but I didn't. So anyway, doing a little bit of research, I'm like, okay, I need to go get some meters so I can determine whether or not this stuff is legit. So check this out. Got the meter, and this meter, basically you plug it into any outlet in your place, and it will tell you whether you have clean power or dirty power. Now I can go into all the egghead electrical theory as to what dirty power and clean that power is, but in a nutshell, the harmonics coming off of your power, it's not like it was 30 years ago because we're plugging in our phones, our computers, and all these other things that screw up the harmonics. Or you got smart devices on your refrigerator, your TV, whatever the case, it screws up the sine wave in your power. So instead of it being a true sine wave like it used to be, it's now disjointed and then radiating from the wires going through your wall. We in the electrical trade call it the right-hand rule, where if I put my hand on the wire and I put my fingers out like that, you have flux lines. I can get egghead. Just know that the dirtier your power, the more the negative radiation is radiating through every single wire in your house. So here's what I did. Got the meter, plugged it in. To give you a basis of understanding, depending on whom you ask, anything below 50 millivolts is considered safe. 25 is perfect. Mine was over 800, no matter where you plugged it in the house. Okay, so now, as an electrician, I'm going back thinking, okay, well, how do I determine where it's coming from? Because I'm like, 800? Are you kidding me? So went through, turned off every single circuit or breaker in your house, and that's how you can kind of pinpoint where it's coming from. Y'all, you ain't going to believe this. 100% of all that dirty power was coming from the fluorescent lights in my kitchen. The old fluorescent lights. It wasn't the LEDs. Now you're better to have incandescent, which is why under the first or second Bush administration, they got rid of them. They banned them because that's actually the best for your health. You can still find them online. But the point being, those old lights, not only do they poison the circuit that they're on, which just happens to be the kitchen, it's backfeeding that nasty stuff through your entire house. Your bedroom, it may not be quite as high as that, but it was still off the charts. My bedroom was in the 300 range. Remember, below 50 is safe. As soon as I got them out, I got a cleaner for my house. I reached out to some people, said, hey, I'm Billy. I got a YouTube channel. Let me test your stuff and see if it's legit. And if it's legit, I'll tell everybody. If it ain't, I'll tell everybody. So reached out to these people, and there are things online, but I'm working on ways right now to find that are more economical. Not everybody's got $1,500 to $2,000 to go drop on something like this. But just by getting rid of the nasty fluorescent lights out in my kitchen, say what?
It's the AI bullshit.
It's your computer. Yeah.
All I had to do was put up that and it just does this. I'll be dang. Okay. So anyway, in a nutshell, okay.
It's like,
I know about this one because my granddaughter, I get on there with her and she loves the little hearts. But anyway, in a nutshell, it was those fluorescent lights that were backfeeding through the entire house, destroying our sleep and everything else. But that was not it. The engineer I spoke to said they're probably hitting you with a trifecta. It could be the electrical stuff because they can now shoot certain signals down your power lines, backfeed it into your house. But that is the number one way. Not everybody's going to be a Nicole Sauce out there who's telling the whole world about what's really going on. Not everybody out there is going to be a Jack Spearco or a John from SOE. Yeah, not everybody. So this engineer hit me up who knows about this stuff, has basically written the definitive work on the subject, said basically they're probably hitting you in every way imaginable. And then when I hit up a guy who's talking about the spiritual, there are people that in the spiritual realm, they will do astral projection, put themselves into your bedroom, put themselves into your house. I mean, people may not believe this stuff, but we're working on that as well. The solution's there, but I'm telling you right now, somebody's asking about the CFL lighting. I haven't tested that specifically, but I will bet $1 to a dime. It's not just a former CIA director was saying your refrigerator could be listening to you. The CFLs and all these other things, that's why they wanted to get rid of. CFLs are definitely bad. LEDs aren't as bad, but it's like saying, you know what? I smoke cigarettes with a filter on them, so they're not as bad for me. So sorry about the long-winded thing, but folks, I'm telling you, if nothing else, go out, buy a meter, an EMF meter that you can plug in. And at some point, hopefully I can run down and go get the ones I'm using, and they will absolutely get you squared away. So grounding helps. All these other things help. But folks, they are hitting us at 30 Ways to Sunday, and I am working on inexpensive mitigation methods that can get you squared away. And just by putting your feet on the ground or I got my bare feet on a grounding mat right now, that helps mitigate a lot of what's going on. So John, I know you're inside your place right now. If you were to able to put your bare feet on a grounding mat, you will find out that all of the negative radiation that's coming out of everything basically goes around your body and hits that mat to ground before it can ever go to your body. If I do a live blood microscopy on your blood right now with you ungrounded, all of your blood platelets are sticking like this, all of your red blood. If you're grounding as often as you can, your blood platelets are basically doing this as we speak. Your blood is basically not clumped together. It's spaced apart like these hearts going across the screen. So
now the grounding mats, for guys that don't know, you're plugging it into an outlet, and the outlet has grounded. If it's properly grounded, you are now attached to the earth. You can also stand on the earth, but you obviously can't do that inside of your house. That's why a lot of people walk barefoot. There's grounding mats that are copper mesh that are basically a mattress pad, and people sleep on those. There is some paint that you can get. Curtis Stone did it in his house before he moved, and his was like a black paint, but it actually blocks RF frequency from coming through. You also need to turn off your electronics, turn off your router, have it outside, put your phone, like we turn all of our phones and everything off. I actually put my phone out of the room, and I actually sleep much better without that thing. And every time I say that, somebody loses their mind. They're like, what if there's an Amber Alert? Well, I mean, my kids are all grown. I mean, I don't
get
know
up
what
in
to
the
tell
middle
you.
of the night for Amber Alerts and start looking around? That's the other question.
Yeah. So there's a lot. What about ferrites, man? Couldn't you attach some ferrites or something on the power coming in and actually filter that in any manner?
Theoretically, you could, but at the end of the day, from an electrical standpoint, what we normally do, and like I said, this is embarrassing because I've been doing this trade for 27 years. What we normally do is put a capacitor bank, and that's all these things are. It's basically a capacitor bank that cleans your power, or we'll run it through another transformer. I don't want to get too egghead on this, but yeah, John, theoretically that could work, but we know for sure that a capacitor bank will clean up your power. And that's why, before you go looking 10 steps deep, you might want to think about how bad is your power coming in just by getting the fluorescent. I'll put it this way. I told you I was 800 by getting rid of those fluorescent lights. This is why everybody needs some means to test. Speaking of fluorescent lights, I wonder how bad I'm getting hit right now with this Pimpcast sign going on in the background, but I'm grounded, so it's all good. But yeah, if you can just find out what the biggest culprit might be, it could be a refrigerator that's about to go out. If it dropped it from 800 to 135, which isn't wonderful, but it ain't awful either. So with that device, I can now drop it down 80%. That device, most devices out there that you can buy will drop it all the way down 80% from where it was. So anything under 100, it's considered, you might want to think about a filter between 150. But I was like, it was instantaneous. In fact, it got so bad around here. You can ask Michelle if I'm lying. we literally killed the power to the entire house all night, and we're running on a solar because I know it has a clean sine wave, a solar generator.
Yep.
That was brought into the room. Well, it wasn't even in the room. We just had an extension cord going into the room to run the fan because it was hot as the blazes out here. And so, yeah, we found out, okay, our sleep is 100% better. There's something going on here. So that's one way in which we worked on doing it. And honestly, y'all, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers and heavenly and wicked things in heavenly places. And I talked to a guy who is very well known in this area. His name is Nathan Reynolds. He escaped from the Illuminati Reynolds family. They put out a hit on his life. I just interviewed him in my podcast the other day. And it was his opinion when I first reached out to him and said, man, what is going on? He said, the fact that it's not just you or not just your wife, it leads me, because he used to be part of these people. He says, I'll bet you 10-1. They got a team on you. They got a team on some other folks too. He said, you can actually hire people to go out there and put satanic hexes on people. I didn't even know this was possible, man. So I'm like, okay, so look, man, I'm not Harry Potter, but what's my defensive against the dark arts here? You know, is there a Dumbledore out there? I mean, what do we do? And so he straightened me out as far as what we do concerning some of that stuff. And some of it actually some of it could be things I brought in. It could be as simple as somebody giving you a tulpa at an event. Let's say, Nicole, you're out at a farmstead event, and they know they don't like the way you came down on, let's say, this thing that's going on in the Middle East. And they basically hired a person to go out there and give you something. It might be the cutest little thing in the world, maybe a vial full of something, and they drop it off. Next thing you know, you got things going on in your house you can't explain. Or John, it may be something you pick up at a swap meet somewhere. You're looking for an antique, and this thing could have been spiritually charged with something. People don't believe this stuff goes on, but folks, I'm telling you, it happens, and it happened to my family more than once. So we got rid of some of these things that could be introducing bad vibes into your place. I know this may sound woo-woo to everybody, but y'all, Jimmy cracked corn, and I don't care.
No, like voodoo dolls, voodoo dolls, witch bottles. There's all kinds of stuff that we had something that had a ghost attached to it in here. There was a ghost here for 6 months almost doing all kinds of crazy shit. Yeah, whether they believe it or not, I don't care. The fact is that it happens, and it happens. And if people believe in that and you have a means to make it stop, I don't care. That's awesome. And hopefully nobody has to experience those things.
But
somebody in the chat says the CIA, didn't they admit to remote viewing?
Yes.
Is a real thing? Yes, it is. It is absolutely a real thing. Astral projection. It is real. I know people that have done it. I know people that do it. And there can be a consequence to doing a lot of that stuff. And you're opening yourself up to certain things according to certain people. Sean Ryan did a really awesome show on his podcast with one of the best remote viewers of all time. There's other people I've followed this stuff for years. People like Ingo Swan.
Yep. Art Bell used to have all those guys on Coast to Coast.
Yeah. And this stuff is legit. I mean, when they're sitting here, you are employing things that maybe you don't know enough about. And yes, this stuff is absolutely real, and they can create havoc in the lives for certain people that they want to keep on the fence.
And why would they not?
I had a lot of really crazy stuff happening at my place for a couple years. And it was like every time I turned around, some freakish, catastrophic breakdown. And we had the entire place blessed. We had somebody come out. We had friends there. And when we did that, it stopped happening.
Yep. Did they burn sage in there and do the whole deal?
I burned sage as part of it, but no, we sat down in a circle and did a prayer circle and had the whole place blessed, and we're inviting in the positive and pushing out anything that might be of ill intent. And I stopped having those kinds of I'd turn around and pipes that were new would just be it was so weird. And then at the same time, it would always be it happens in threes, here, and here, something all within 10, 15 minutes of each other.
Somebody said bells keep bad things away. That's very interesting if you look into that. every church tower, every city, every county had church bells. And right after World War II, they actually fractured all of those church bells. There are pictures of fields full of bells that have cracks in them so that they will not actually chime anymore. It said that with the right frequency, you actually have healing powers. If you look at Tibetan healing bowls and things like that, man, it just puts you back in line. And there really does seem to be something to all of that. And it all across the world, man, they brought those bells down all at the same time. And if you go look at bells, you go find a bell that still functions. They are, I mean, like $100,000 to have a big ass bell. We looked at, I was curious, and there really does seem to be something to that. Somebody else said that they document their witchcraft on their channel. I'd be interested in seeing that also. If you have a channel, if you know how to get a hold of me, reach out. I'd be interested in checking that out.
Yeah, he even does little tours over. Man, you had me freaked out when you and Amanda snuck into one place one time, and you guys were going through there and you were providing the history of it, and it was some weird lady back in the day who was doing some pretty awful things to kids back in the day. But to your point about the bells, it was surmised that all of those bells had healing you guys heard of solfeggio tones? Mm-hmm. They're all healing frequencies. 440 hertz is one of them. Mm-hmm. And prior to World War II,
broadcast rate
absolutely was all in 440 hertz. And all those bells were also in solfeggio tones. It may not have always been 440, but it was other healing frequency. And you could always check it with a tuning fork, because if it's at that frequency, it'll make the tuning fork that's tuned to that frequency vibrate. And that's what all those bells were for. Like you said, at the churches, even the very structure of the church was designed to be healing in and of itself, to draw healing, as some believe. But in addition to that, right before World War II, this is extraordinary. I heard about this history a little while ago, and of course, being a history buff, it really stuck out to me. Prior to World War II, the entire planet, every orchestra in the known world was tuned to 440 hertz. And all of a sudden, one of Hitler's henchmen, and by the way, don't believe everything you ever heard about Hitler and his boys. It's not quite the history that everybody tells you it is. But anyway, the story goes is that Heimlich Himmler basically said, hey, let's get all the world body of musicians together. We're going to change it from 440 to 444 hertz. To this day, everything you hear on terrestrial radio, just like John said a moment ago, is tuned to this very dissonant. It is a consonant frequency, meaning pleasing, at 440 hertz, and is very dissonant at 440. They took a bunch of musicians recently, professional orchestra people, and they said, they didn't tell them anything. They said, okay, tell us which tone sounds better. And they put it at 440. They didn't know this. And then 444, because these people, their ears are very well tuned to what should be good. To a person, male or female, didn't even matter. Every single one of them agreed. They didn't know what the tone was. They were like, okay, 444, whatever this is, that is by far the most pleasing. What they didn't realize is that everybody else is tuned, and they themselves, when they're in the orchestra, they're all tuned to 444, so they can't tell the difference. So, or to 440 as opposed to 444. I think y'all get the point. But anyway, these things are intentionally done. And yes, the church bells almost certainly had a hand in all that.
Mm-hmm. Somebody had asked how to ground if you don't.
Yeah, I was going to bring that one up. So
you can you drive a grounding rod, and sometimes 6 feet will work. Sometimes it has to be more than 6 feet. I've seen 12. I mean, they go down, and then you put a coupler on there, and you actually run a copper wire up, and you plug your machine in with that. The company that sold you those mats will have a they'll have the parts to do that generally, or tell you how to do it.
Yeah, and the other thing is when you get those plug-in grounding kits, they come with a tester for your plug to make sure your ground is hooked up to the right place, because if it's not, you could get an electrical shock you don't want. And
John also pointed out something that was pretty critical too, is that depending on where you are and how much rain you get in that area, that grounding rod they provide, which is usually only a 2-foot one, might not even work. So what we would have to do in the desert is, you can literally lay it. You don't have to pound a grounding rod vertically. You can lay it horizontally. You can dig a trench 2 feet in the ground. You can lay it horizontally if you don't want to do it vertically. I've even done videos on how I can drive a 10-foot ground rod with nothing more than my bare hands in water. I probably have to redo that video so people can see it. But you can lay that on the ground, and it may not be sufficient. If you're in a place like Arizona, you may have to use soft drawn copper to put several rods in the ground, like we had to do in the Middle East, because there's no water out there. There's no ground conductivity. Or if you have a ground rod that's currently there, take a cup of salt water, pour it over that, and then now all of a sudden you're going to have some conductivity. So yeah, there are ways around it.
We 100% fight that battle with our grounding rods when it gets dry, because our hills are like that. So we'll be up there with salt water all day long, just letting it seep right there.
On your fencing,
just
on
keep
your
the fences
chargers
going. Yeah. One of our fences was struck by lightning 2 weeks ago.
Mm.
By the way, the fence charger did not survive.
What?
The fence charger did not survive.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow. See, if you had an EMP shield on that bad boy, you'd have been covered.
I know.
25 G's. Promo code PERMA will get you 10, 20, 50 bucks off. gratuitous plug right there. Yeah.
I approve, Billy. I approve of gratuitous plugs.
And guys,
hey, tell us about that event you're doing in August, because that sounds pretty darn cool.
Yeah. There were some people that were hitting me up about it, and I wouldn't mind if it would be nice to be able to cross-pollinate our audiences regarding all of the events we're doing. So it's not possible right now for me to get where you guys are to do any events or go any places more than a couple hours away, because that leaves Michelle pretty much by herself to do everything around here. And it's really a two-person job when you live in the kind of terrain we live in. So we were thinking, okay, well, we can't do any events outside of that realm because I'm not going to just trust anybody to come here and look after things. So we basically teamed up with Mike the Fit Farmer and also Sprinkle with Soil, Tim and Sophie over there. And we're like, okay, what do we like about these festivals, and what would we like to improve on? And what I wanted to do, I was never a big fan, and this is a childhood thing for me. I was never a big fan of VIP. It stands for very important persons, but when I grew up, I thought it meant for very immense penises, because that's how they treated us every time we tried to sneak in to the arts festival. There would be a VIP section out there, and this is my own little hang up, is that I was like, well, what makes these kids so special? Here I am in small town Oklahoma, and they got this arts festival. I want to go in this VIP tent. It looks like it's really cool, but they're not letting me in. And it wasn't a black or white thing. It was a money thing. And we were no hope, no soap, and the rope kind of broke when I was a kid. So there wasn't no breaking bread to get in the VIP section. So I was like, how do we do this to where we can do a VIP thing where everybody's a VIP? How can we also do it to where we don't have to do any upcharging? But the only reason people upcharge for classes is because you got to pay the bills, as you guys well know. So how do we do this? And I was thinking the only possible way to be able to do this and feed dinner to everybody every single night is if we are the ones we get everybody who's going to do this and rock for the love. You're going to have to do it for free. So if you're not going to teach for free, we can't have you here because we can't pay you, because the money that we're raising for this, we're doing it as a real deal blueberry orchard. It's going to be a camp out, kind of like you do at SOE. And it's also going to have campfires. And we're also going to be at a live, real working blueberry orchard where people can actually pick blueberries. Camping's free. Everything's free. Excuse me. We wanted to make it all inclusive as we possibly could and not break the bank at a time where inflation is through the roof. And at the same time, a workman is worth his hire. So nobody's content to gain only their capital from an investment. As you guys well know, there's got to be some level of profit. So how do we accomplish all these at the same time and then give them classes that I know that they ordinarily couldn't get? Well, if I'm an expert at anything, like I said, it's probably patterns. So pattern recognition leads to permaculture. And then in permaculture, you know what? We are subject matter experts when it comes to processing animals. So we were going to do that. So we got chefs coming in to fix whatever it is we smoke that day or we kill that day. And they're going to basically have a carving station over there with the lamb that they got laid out on the spit. And we're basically making it a 5-star event with a 2-star price. And that's exactly what we tried to do. And at the same time, putting other classes in there. Okay, what am I really good at? You know what? I'm really good at making compost, really good at building soil. And I'm thinking in these times, if you were to walk away with knowing how to process your animals, because it doesn't have to, I'm teaching you a process that works no matter the animal. So whether it's a Cuda Monday or a moose, it doesn't matter. You're going to walk away from this knowing how to do that. You're going to know how to do birds. You're going to know how to make compost. And it's not going to be some two-dimensional thing where I'm on a screen. I'm going to build the pile that day, and I'm going to have a pile that I've already prepared and show you the proper way to flip it. So if you're using your phone or whatever, I wanted it to be this event that could be so all-inclusive that you walk out of there thinking, you know what, if I don't learn a thing more, the whole world can go to hell in a handbasket, and I know how to make compost at my place with the things that are available, and I can kill and grill anything that comes along, and I'm even going to know to some extent how to preserve it. And I learned all this at the Homesteaders United Jamboree, and how passive food production, how to do beekeeping, how to raise blueberries, a superfood. All this packed under one event. It's never really been done like this before. Is it going to work? Yeah, I think so. And because we don't have to hire anybody in, but we do have bills to pay, so we do have to charge money for it. So early bird tickets are already sold, and we're only going to have, and also keeping the event small. So small, in fact, like you guys intentionally do at SOE, to where it's not so watered down, where a lot of these really big events where you got thousands and thousands of people are there, that nobody gets any real training out of the deal. So we got it exclusively down to 300 people, no more. When we hit 300, that's it. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do there. Sorry once again for the long-winded answer, but that's the vision.
So how do people sign up?
Yeah, homesteadersunited.com is the best way to go about it. You can kind of see everything that we have there. And like I said, it's all inclusive in terms of your dinner. You got to look, we'll have some ballin' food trucks out there. It's near Asheville. I mean, this is so close to Asheville, you can throw a rock. So we got Creaky Tree Cafe, which is without a doubt the best food truck on planet Earth. He's a former surgeon that became a food truck operator after COVID. So this guy is he's got his PhD in pimpology when it comes to this food out here. And then we got the best burger truck in Asheville coming out. We also got we got a couple of people doing some good coffee and some pastries. So breakfast and lunch will be out there. If you want to buy it, you can bring your own. And dinner will be provided with every ticket. So for Thursday and Friday of the event, dinner will be provided. We got some professional chefs out there that are going to be literally killing the things cooking the things that we processed, some of which we will have done ahead of time, because in the ideal world, you want to age a goat or sheep, any ruminant, you want to age at least 21 days to get the best out of it. So that the one we do there will probably be turned in the ground and made into something else. But the things that we're going to actually carve and eat and all that good stuff is actually going to be things that were done 21 days prior. So yeah, that's how they sign up.
Is William coming out for that and presenting?
I'm not sure. I don't think so, because my son William, if those that don't know, he's the permaculture
consultant
on YouTube, and he's got his own thing going. And I think y'all would agree with me. It's a poor sort of pupil that does not surpass his master. Leonardo da Vinci said that. Instead of sending him off to college, and instead of sending him, we sent him off to Australia. We sent him to learn under Joel Salatin. We sent him to learn under Greg Judy. We sent him to learn under some of these best in the world. And by all intents and purposes, he's been retired since he was 25, because he now spends every day doing what he loves. And in a nutshell, I'm not sure we were going to try to put him on the schedule. So that's a reason to see my grandbaby, to have him drive across country with the grandbaby. So I'm not sure he's going to be able to make it, but yeah, in so many ways, he surpassed his old man, and he's doing a fantastic job of it. He's out there doing work for Bear at his place, and he's highly sought after as a consultant, and in so many ways, he's so much better than me. So sorry, I know you asked me one question, but man, I could not be more proud of what he's done and what he's doing, and what he's taking it past where he found it.
Yeah, I think he's going to make scything popular again. People are going and buying scythe. I know I'm going to go buy a scythe because of it.
And he's so much better at certain things than I am. I got my way of communicating. We all have our ways of communicating, but I'm seeing him grow like the Bible even says, raise a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Well, that didn't work for me because I departed plenty. Maybe I kind of circled back to it. In his case, he might have done some things his old man doesn't know about, but it's really awesome to know that he was raised outside of the matrix. Unlike all of us here, where we had that thing stuck in the back of our heads because, having come up in the matrix, we got out of there. He was raised on the outside of the matrix, and it's so cool to see what he's able to do with it and not be beholden to a system that's meant to make us all slaves. So, yeah, sorry, didn't answer the question, but I kind of took it in a way I thought I loved.
So I think what I heard you say is if he ends up there last minute, that's a thing, but he can't commit right now because of his other work.
Yeah, his old man's trying to get him out here. Same with his mom, but now seeing the grandbaby and all that, but there's sometimes you can't grow. He's only going to grow so far. You know how I used to have a pet alligator when I was little, and I had him in an aquarium, and he would only get so big. He'll only get as big as the space he's put in. Well, it's the same thing when he's out here working for his old man, because he's only going to develop so far. But now that he's able to call all the shots, do all the things, I'm seeing him develop in ways that I could have never taught him. So he's taken the lessons I've taught him and all the other information that he learned from people like Jeff Lawton. I mean, how many people would give their left testicle to go train with Jeff Lawton? I mean, seriously. How many people would do that? Well, he's had that opportunity and was able to be his right-hand man for a while. And here he is able to take all that stuff that he learned from the best on planet Earth, arguably probably the best permaculture designer in history, and is able to take that knowledge, turn it into things that he learned from Joel, turn it into things that he learned from all these other people, and then all this other experience that he's gathered along the way. And now we're seeing him develop into something. He's coming up. I mean, he's not able to see it, but I can see it from 1,000 feet away that he's developing into something that's far surpassed his old man. And that's exactly what I hope and pray for.
How did you meet up with Fit Farmer? How did that relationship start?
Yeah, well, it was crazy because I was invited to go eat some Vietnamese food. And so there's some folks I know, and it's sprinkled with soil. We met them at another event, and I said, hey, come on my podcast. We can promote your book sometime. Well, they just live a couple of hours up the road in Tennessee. Well, me and Michelle can make that trip. They said, hey, you want to come over and eat some Vietnamese food? At first, I was like, nope. I don't want to eat no Vietnamese food because I tried it once before in Kansas City, and I literally projectile vomited, leaving the restaurant all over the people that were there. It was a second most embarrassing moment of my life. And I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with no Vietnamese food. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to try it. And I'm betting that she's not going to use whatever they had in it, which turned out to be MSG. And so it was real deal. She wrote a cookbook on it. And I'm like, okay, let's go try it. Turns out Fit Farmer was over there too. And we hit it off right off the bat. First of all, I was like, man, this camera doesn't do this guy any justice, man, because he is built like a tank. And I first thing when I saw him, I'm like, man, you really are the Fit Farmer. And he just kind of laughed at me. And it turns out that this guy has a level of integrity and honesty that was that I don't know that can be portrayed, because there's certain aspects of all of us that you never get through the lens of a camera. It's just sitting down, talking to somebody, having coffee with them, hanging out and stuff. And that's how it kind of began. And then I realized from a religious standpoint that we had a couple of things that overlap. So that opened up a couple of conversations, things where we probably bitterly disagree on, which is fine too. And then, just finding out, man, I was trying to, there's so many people in this space that are absolute frauds. I mean, complete 100% frauds. And I know who they are. I'm not going to mention who they are, but they're household names. And when I found out this guy is the real article, it was a joy to know that they actually do the work that they do at their place, because there are a whole lot of people out there. I'm sure y'all are aware of some where they just come in for photo ops, where they come in for other people are actually doing the work, and they come in there and they're pretending to do what they don't do. But it's really awesome to know that they're out there sucking it up, and growing and doing and being exactly what they say they are. So yeah, it was a real joy to be able to hang out with them and get to know them better.
Awesome.
Well, it's the same way with you guys. It's it's a joy knowing what y'all do out there, and then to see how Self-Reliance Festival is kind of evolving. You bring in different people, different talent. You had the pimp cat, you had the pimp daddy of Polyface himself out there. And by the way, John, whether you know it or not, the interview you did with him was probably the best interview I've ever seen of Joel. You started off a little bit like the same. It's funny because I started off the same way. I was like, dude, this dude's standing in front of me right now. And it was like Michael Jackson standing in front of a normie. And I was a little bit kind of tongue tied at first, but honestly, you conducted the best interview I've ever seen of Joel.
I asked the questions that I mean, I hadn't heard anybody answer those questions. And I know that he does the apprentice thing and brings in those people and they develop those individual businesses. So I was very curious about that.
You know, one thing I took away from it too was that, and you're the only person I've ever seen tease it out of him, is the methodology in which he goes through to find out good or bad help. I had no idea. And I know you have a little method for it as well. And I was like, okay, man, I wonder if I can use both of those, because I was telling Joel about this time where I had kids show up. They wanted to be apprentices. They were in their early 20s. And everywhere we went around here, they're like, man, that's a lot of work. Like, dude,
this is hot out here. I'm sweating.
Turns out farming's a lot of work. Who knew?
Yeah, I think people, everybody knows they want to get out of the city, but they've never been on a farm, right? So they get the place, or they rent the place, and they go down to the flea market or whatever, and they buy that instant farm. You know, all of a sudden they've got 2 dogs and 2 goats and 12 chickens, and they don't realize, holy shit, this is actual work. And you know, I think I'm badass because I get up at 4:30 in the morning and work out every morning. Every farmer in the world is up at 4:30 in the morning. He beats you up by an hour. And those animals, they don't care whether it's raining, shining, or snowing. Like that is a commitment. And a lot, like you do see these homesteads that people put a lot of money. They sell them California, New York homes and buy this place. And all they want to do is just get out of there after a year. So
I got a question for y'all. I got a question for y'all, because I've been seeing this pattern, okay, regarding a lot of people that are getting into this homestead space. It's funny because I keep seeing people that, I wonder if you're seeing it, or if you're not seeing this, maybe what you are seeing in terms of people that get into this space and they realize, oh, there is work. It requires more work than I thought. Or B, they get into this work and they want to do it full time, but they're wanting to accomplish. All of us have social media followings. All of us make a living outside of, punching a clock every day. And they're wanting to get to that space in record time, but they don't want to pay their dues. They're looking for a shortcut to get there. I'm wondering what y'all are seeing in terms of people that are making that transition, because that's something that I see overwhelmingly. They want what it took me a decade to build, or in terms of knowledge, what it took me 25 years to figure out in terms of permaculture, preparedness, and practical living. They're wanting to have it tomorrow because they see this whole thing falling apart. What are y'all seeing in that regard?
I've seen a lot of people try that transition and fail because they try to do it all at once. And, we always give the advice, start 1 or 2 things, get good at it, and add more things. And that is not what any of us really did. We also, I'm sure John didn't, but I know I didn't. I started a whole bunch of things at once, became overwhelmed, cried, realized I needed to let go of things, realized I needed to reorganize things, brought in friends to help me. Like that community aspect's been really important. But I've seen one person in particular by herself start her homestead with the help of her partner coming in like 1 week a month. Works from the moment she gets up until she can't stay awake that night, every single day, no days off. Like she goes to church on Sunday and then comes home and does more homestead stuff, right? And what she has accomplished in the year is a beautiful homestead that is a lot of work that she can't leave, but she's making it happen. And she's had heartbreak and long nights and learned a lot about first aid for animals and failures and successes. And that's what it's taken for her to ramp up quickly enough where she's going to get so lamb for the family and chicken. That's her 2 big things that she's gotten out of that. That's taken her a focused year, significant investment of time, investment of money. So it is possible, but it's just like I was at the airport, as you know, because I flew. And somebody asked me if I had Wednesday off for Juneteenth. And I said, well, I work for myself, so no. No.
Just like
And
I don't have Christmas off.
yeah, I was like, I just work every day. Like, yes, I can take time off more flexibly, but it's very rare that I don't do something every single day.
I don't know. I think I'm going to take the counter to that. I'm not like you normal humans. We just do it, man. Like you have a choice. You can do it or you can not do it. Like that's the answer. I mean, ask for help, get help, streamline. I mean, I still don't have automated waterers on any of these animals. Nothing here is automated at all. And I mean, you've seen me both of you see me do the animals. It was 17 minutes when I have it staged and everything's consolidated one to the other to the other. 17 minutes to do everything I have to do to keep those animals alive every day. Now that doesn't include, doing fodder trees or growing grass crops or anything like that. We're way beyond 17 minutes now. I'm outside every morning for at least an hour, but I mean, we could pull it in and circle the wagons and definitely do it quicker. We could automate things, and which I have not. I mean, I still move water a lot of times in 1 gallon little pitchers because I'm dumb. But it also makes me look at those animals every single morning rather than knowing, oh, that J feeder's got 2 days of food in it, and that 5-gallon bucket will feed that rabbit, will water that rabbit for an entire week. That's great till that water line gets clogged up or, a mouse chews through it or something. So it's definitely work. And I run SOE. I mean, I work within the company as well as a few other things. And we've got 2 podcasts that we do now full length, and there's 5 video series. I mean, we put out, I don't know, 20, 30 hours of content every week, probably in addition to that.
Have you noticed though, I'm wondering, have you noticed people that are looking to make a business on a farmstead that are just doing a cut and paste job of something that somebody else may be doing? Like one of the big things I see is, and I'm really not trying to be critical of other people that do it, but they get into this business and they go into the soap business. How many soap businesses are out there? Apothecary. How many apothecary businesses are out there? How many, oh shoot. I mean, it's like the top, instead of solving a problem, what we've done on our homestead for a business, and I want to translate this to a lot of others, is that had a deer problem, solved my deer problem and monetized it and said, okay, if I solved mine, gee, I could do this for other people. And wow. I mean, yeah, business is a booming because we're the only people that do that sort of thing. Or the comfrey business. I'm like, okay, you mean to tell me there's like really not anybody else doing comfrey right now? It's a dynamic accumulator. You buy it once, you never got to buy it again. It solved my problem and it solves everybody else's problem. But I see a lot of other people getting into this space and they're just trying to hijack, I think, another idea. There's nothing wrong with doing those other things, but it seems like everybody, are you noticing that people are basically doing a cut and paste job on what everybody else is doing?
Yeah, sure they are. But it's because it's something they can do, right? We have that template and we've done a good job at showing them. Lance lived with us for 2 years and started his soap company, Tap Rack Bang EDC. And now his son has a company called Nomadic Soap. Our friend, Ashley, I'll bet she's got 200,000 on TikTok just making soap. And like, you want to know how to run a social media. That's really what she should be teaching, is how to do a social media business. Her husband makes tactical gear, kind of like we do. He really should quit that. Like he doesn't want to do it. He's not really doing it. He should quit that and pour everything into her business. And they would really be a powerhouse then. Just like Amanda does comfrey salves, we've got soaps, we've got, we bought a whole building. It's sitting out front here. There's a 40-foot tiny house out here that is her apothecary. It's going to be her kitchen and everything in there. But I mean, she runs SOE. She does all the stuff that I'm not going to do within the business. So together we're able to do this. But I mean, yeah, I guess it's just something, if you have a homestead or a piece of property, or you kind of want to develop the money to kind of do that lifestyle. If you look at, there's a husband and wife, he's Hawaiian. He was a police officer, simple kind of life. They were living in a city doing homesteading out of the backyard. And now they're on hundreds of acres in, up in Idaho or Montana or somewhere. But it's a template that we've put out there that they can emulate, and then they can take it. It's just like buying a freeze dryer. You can take your freeze dried stuff and pay for your freeze dryer easily in 90 days, but you have to have that venue and you have to have the product. And I think it's a stepping stone, and it is another revenue stream. Eventually, hopefully they come up with something of their own that we can, emulate something that they've created. But I mean, we definitely didn't invent soap, and we got the I didn't even know what comfrey was until you planted it everywhere here. Man, I remember we put 600 strawberries in here. We're dividing and taking those runners and stuff and making strawberries out of them. I just don't have time to do that stuff because we're doing stuff that we've, done for 30 years already that pays way, way more.
Absolutely.
But I mean, every little homestand, because of TikTok and the shorts, everybody wants that beautiful little kiosk where you come up and you put your money in the jar and you get your eggs and your milk and, your stuff. Everybody wants that. And those firewood bundles on the honor system. But I mean, the fact is we have criminals around here. So I don't know, man. Everything they do, like, I would rather everybody around me have something, even if it's kind of competing with me, because they're going to be of some value if things get hard, right? If they're at least doing that, they're not, they're providing something. I want to be friends with everybody. Even if my guy next to me is doing the same thing I am, I have a completely different audience. I can get on, like we do a video once a week on how to make my products. I literally sit down, cut it, talk to the camera. Here's how you literally copy exactly what I make. Guys love it. We have 100 dudes all the time like, hey, what sewing machine do you use? They're not ever going to build what we're building. And the guys watching it, most people are going to be like, oh, I see why that backpack's $350. And then they just buy it. Every time we put out,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I would say this year in particular, Billy, I've seen a lot of people emulating different aspects of the homesteading online thing. So a lot of festivals have popped up. A lot of people want to do like chicken processing on their home. And I think it's a natural part of the wave, like Joel calls it, the homestead tsunami, right? It's a natural thing where they're going to try things they've seen other people do successfully, do it the same way they are. And some of them are doing well. And some of them, it's like 3 people came. And the difference is if they have a community already that they're tapped into, they're more likely to be successful because they have a channel of people who want to support them by buying that bar of soap. And what I've seen them doing is along the way, they either discover they hate soap and stop doing that, but along the way, they discover something else they love, or they do well with it. And that's great too. So I think to me, I like seeing people start things for themselves because that's when you realize how hard the taxes are. That's when it's part of that awakening from the system. You're suddenly aware of, I thought my boss was a dork or a jerk or whatever, but now that I'm the boss, I realize how hard it is to do some of those things that the boss has to do. And then they have more empathy for the people around them. That doesn't happen in every case, but in many cases. So, on one hand, I'm watching it happen and I'm like, man, they're cruising for a bruising on what they're about to do because I can see that it's like, but how else do you get better than to be fearless, try something? And if you're going to have a homestead and you can figure out a good way to monetize it, that makes you more stable on your homestead in the long run.
I'm totally with that. It's just, if there was a little more, what I'm saying is, in a nutshell, is basically a guy moved from the city, goes out to the country. I want to quit my day job. You got zero experience doing any of this. And then you're going to start up a business, which I think is cool, but you might want to, my business to me is sustainable because I'm the world's expert on it. There's nobody that knows more about bone sauce than me. There's nobody on this planet that knows more about comfrey than me. There might be a couple out there, but generally that's what I made a business out of. But then I was having a conversation with Joel Salatin, for those that don't know. He gave me this $1 million, he called it $1 million idea. And I was like, Joel, I only got one half of that equation, but the person I know that actually has the other half of that equation, believe it or not, is John Willis. I've never had this conversation with you, but this is one I had twice with Joel, actually 3 times with Joel. And he's like, yeah, this is one of my visions. Well, there's two visions of Joel that I want to make a reality. One of them is actually feeding livestock along either a country road that belongs to the county or an interstate. Because like you said, you can feed the whole planet with just the interstates in the United States of Amnesia. Yep. That's one thing I want to see a reality of his. The others I'm not going to talk about because I need to actually talk to John about it. But he came up with this idea and he says, look, I promise you, it's $1 million idea. I've said this thing 1,000,000 times already, but nobody's ever done it. Well, Joel didn't realize why nobody's ever done it. I filled in the gap for him, but I was like, I only have half of this equation. But on the other half, I'm thinking, okay, I'm listening, I'm hearing other people, and I'm thinking about how it may apply to my business. And somebody can feel free to run away with this one. So if anybody out there, I know we got thousands probably listening or going to listen, came up with this idea. You have Dr. Brian Ardis, who talks about nicotine and how we ought to all be using nicotine patches well, you can't see mine. It's actually under my belly button, unless I don't want to show you all that because I got to take off too much clothing. And sadly, I'd be dispelling the notion that all men are created equal. So I don't want to disappoint John. So anyway, I'm not going to show y'all where the nicotine patch is, but the point being, would it be more fun if you could actually use the tobacco? Because tobacco, according to him and other people out there, isn't necessarily a bad thing. Yep. So I've been working on how to make my own smokeless tobacco, which I got right here. And check this out. I'm going to do the unthinkable. Okay, it's not that tobacco is bad for you. It's all the thousands of crap they put in it.
It's big tobacco.
I never tasted real tobacco in my life. Yeah. So I was like, okay, let me reach out to these people. Let me find out how to make it, because there is something of a skill. Well, guess what? I'm an autodidact, so I figured it out. And right here on air, look at this. Homemade tobacco that's actually doesn't have the junk in it that's healthy for you. So I can still get in the nicotine I need to fill all the receptors in my body for the things, whether they're spraying from the sky, whatever the case. It's more fun doing it this way. And now I can spit in a freaking bottle because it's just plain cool. So I'm like, okay, there's something right there that I'm thinking, okay, that would be a pretty good business opportunity, because you know what doesn't exist on the market right now, Nicole? There's maybe something you might want to run with. There is no clean tobacco. It's either zero tobacco and we're going to make you pretend like it is, but there's no snuff on the market that exists. It's just straight up tobacco with nothing else in it. So I'm like, why has nobody ever done this? Well, hey, guess what, Billy? Go do the R&D on it, which I have been for a couple of months now, and I've successfully done it, and I'm successfully getting people off of Copenhagen and all the other things out there, and I can sell it for less money and make twice the profit over anything else I do. So what I'm saying is that there are tons of enterprises out there. Is there a cigarette you can make out there that you could sell? Am I going to have to deal with ATF? Possibly.
Yep, you are.
Yeah. I know I am, and I'm probably going to.
The problem with the tobacco, and every problem has a solution or a workaround, but the problem with the tobacco is the tobacco isn't the problem. It's big tobacco that's the problem. And then you have ATF, who shuts down the guy trying to grow it in his backyard and sell it to his neighbor. It's just like chicken, right? I can process chickens and put it out on the end of the street here and give it away all day. But if they don't get their tax, right? If I don't have that certification for that processing facility, look out, boy.
So you have to have like a tobacco. So I'm not saying you should stop, obviously, but there's some sort of tobacco permit you have to grow it commercially in air quotes, like with peanuts. It's the same way. He can't just grow peanuts and sell peanuts because he doesn't have a permit for it.
Is that real? That's
real.
Yeah, but here's the way around it. And I actually learned this from you, Nicole, because you were the first one to tell me this. You know what else I do with tobacco? It's also one of the key ingredients in bone sauce. Well, it's not a key ingredient, but it's one of the. So you know what? Just like you told me, well, the way you get around the milk thing, I'm pretty sure it was you that first told me the way you get around the milk thing is it's either pet food or you call it something else.
Soil amendment.
So I just happen to sell soil amendments
Don't
that's
eat
in
it.
the, that's in a can, not for, you call it cat food. There's a way around everything. And I've learned some really nifty tricks from both of you. And like I said, I think it was you that actually told me about the milk thing. So what I'm saying is that find a problem. They're currently, somebody wants to run away with this, go knock yourself out. But what I'm saying is I'm like, okay, I can either put on a nicotine patch, which will cost you a fortune over a period of time, or I could find a way to process tobacco on my own, which I figured out how to do, make it actually kind of tasty. I mean, as tasty as tobacco can be, because there's a difference between a cigarette that you bought that's Marlboro and an old boy I know that rolls his own, that they don't even smell the same.
We had some guys here that are doing a couple 100 acres of tobacco at Self-Reliance Festival, and then right across the border, they still do grow. It's very cool. Like, I love to stop and look at the tobacco fields. We saw them out there doing stuff with drones last time we were coming through there. So it's still there. It's definitely a dying market in the United States for sure, but it is still there, man. You've got Hermosi, who swears by nicotine, and a lot of those dudes. Not Crowder. Who's the guy that just
biohackers?
Yeah, but who's the guy? Who's the huge YouTube channel? He went over and interviewed Putin. Whatever, I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, I know he's a biohacker. Yeah,
he swears by nicotine. A lot of these guys do.
Exactly. So why not create a fun way? Because it doesn't. Go look for yourself, y'all. Anybody out there in the chat, find me organic tobacco with no crap in it, or find a way for somebody to get off Copenhagen Skull, whatever that stuff is out there. Find a way for them to do that where it's just straight tobacco. Well, it didn't exist until I invented it.
I think you're going to see some real issues coming up in the next few years here with the vape stuff catching up with guys.
Yep.
Yeah. Take the ride says it identifies as trans tobacco.
There you go. But there's so many different ways in which, I solved a problem for myself, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I know that this could be a problem that is solved for other people. So if anybody out there is wanting to do a business, I learned so much business. I mean, there were things I learned from you, John, where it was little tweaks that we made in our business that really at first 3x'd our revenue, and then later on 10x'd our revenue. And it was embarrassingly simple things that we learned from you that made all the difference in the world in terms of our sales. So I want to give a hat tip to both of you for the advances we've made around here. And it comes down to really just having conversations with smart people that are also entrepreneurs and doing things in their own way. And we're able to, cross-pollinate, as it were, some really good, valuable information, just sitting around a table, just hearing you say something. I'm like, oh snap, I could do that. Or other things that I've learned from you that I'm not going to say here because I think it was kind of proprietary, that made all the difference in the world and the things we sell and the things we do, things I would have never considered had I never crossed your path. So I want to give a hat tip to both of y'all.
Yeah. Every time I hang out with people who are better at me than business, I walk away with a to-do list. And then the next time I hang around them, they'll say the same exact things they said last time, and something else falls out. It's a different to-do list. So that's why, as much as I love to be a homebody, I've been really enjoying getting out to some smaller events lately, and just coming across some of these new ideas. I learned from a guy this weekend that you can put peppermint candies in beehives to get rid of hive beetles.
See, where I messed up for the longest time is taking financial advice from broke people. I mean, honestly, whether it was my own family, and they may not even mean the worst for you. Some people are just flat out jealous and want to see you fail. But as soon as I stopped taking advice from broke people, and then John turned me on to Andy Frisella, and then I did the 75 hard thing, and I'm like, okay, how is it I added this 75 hard to my life, and I'm getting 3 times more done than things I was already doing? It's little tweaks like that you can do in your life that 10x everything else that I would not have ever known listening to the people that are content to just, when I say broke people, I'm not meaning that in a derogatory sense. I'm talking people that have never attempted to work for anybody outside of their employer, people that have never tried to do entrepreneurial things or look at things outside the box. It changed my whole way of doing things. And even though I work 10 times harder now than I ever did working for somebody else, back then in the day, look, I was like everybody else. I'm playing hide and seek for $2,000 a week, or they make $1, I make a dime. That's why I poop on company time. All that stuff, all that, all those things that you adopt as an employee, you're going to be back working as an employee if you have that same mindset working for yourself. So it was kind of cool to. Yeah, I guess I got you guys flat-footed on that, but those are the mindsets where you have.
No, I mean it. Go ahead, John.
Back to the people starting homesteads and doing the little side hustles and stuff. Really, if you're going to scale that, especially coming in not having a skill and having to learn skills, at the end of any business, you really become a social media company. And I've been saying that for a few years now. We have most of our money on YouTube comes from memberships. All of our money on Patreon comes from memberships. And we put out, I don't know, 20, 30 hours, 20 hours probably just for members, right? Both the podcasts are members only. They come out to the public 6 months later. But on like our Q&A, Amanda and I sit down and we do 90 minutes to 2 hours. And the people on the membership, they just ask questions, whatever it is, how to do social media, how to scale business. Hey, what do you think about this? And every one of them, well, not every one of them, but many, many of them have taken that advice and they're like, hey, this actually worked. Here's the next thing. And you can see it working. So they make money. It's $10 a month to do it, but we put real information in there. Like it's actionable and you can see them executing and you can see them progressing and buying property and growing the businesses up. So it's like you need that advertising, and without social media, there is no ad. Like we ran full print magazine ads, and we were in every gun mag in the news on the newsstand every month. Never did anybody ever, not one time did they go, hey, I found out about you from Recoil magazine. Never. But every night we do a live feed, and there's 500 people on there at any given time that found us through the social media stuff.
Does it make y'all in any way feel as if you're a sharecropper on somebody else's plantation, being that is in fact the case? Because to some extent, all of us here have to be to get the word out, we need that means. So if you're kicked off this platform or that platform or all the platforms, where does that kind of put you? Is it a strange area? Do you have contingencies for that?
Yeah, I have an email list and we have a text app, and even that's becoming intrusive. Like they'll be like, hey, community guidelines. I'm like, oh, you guys look just like Facebook, but you just play the game, man. And by the time you always have a backup plan, like you need 3 lines of, supply for everything. I have 5 merchant processors. I have, credit card processors. We've got all the social media apps. So if one comes down, we just click the other one on and merge it in. But yeah, you just play the game. It's the same thing of all the guys. You see people running around all the time. They're like, I'm not going to buy any property because you don't really own it. Property taxes, blah, blah, blah. That's cool. I'll rent you some property and I'll make all the money. It's the same thing, right? I don't want to use YouTube, and I understand it, man. We get hit community guideline stuff all the time. We've always got strikes, but I talk to millions of people. Like I literally get 18 million hours of watch time every 30 days. It's like something insane, right? And I have Rumble. People are like, you should be on Rumble. I am on Rumble. You know who's not there? None of you guys.
The ones telling you on other platforms to go to
Rumble.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's crazier that you don't realize, you don't already know I am on Rumble. I'm everywhere. And we have that as a backup. And
I would say like pushing straight for the direct relationship as quickly as possible on one hand, and something I like about our community, and by our community I mean like all of our communities, is I call it the community because it's kind of like one wider community, is that having the power of that means if one of us actually gets booted from one of these things, there are people who are going to talk about that, which drives people to help you out, which I think is awesome about the community. But would it hurt for a little while? Am I going to let it censor me? That's why no, because that's why people follow me. I'll just say what I think, and they expect that from me. So part of it's the promise I've made to them. And I just heard something. Can you tell me is this true? Because I was sort of not paying attention the last 24 hours. Were gun channels all kicked off YouTube? I read something
No.
about that today.
No.
No? Okay. There was a big old thing about it. And I was like, okay, I need to go verify that.
No,
But
half of our channels, half of the guys we do stuff with are gun channels.
yeah.
I mean, social, like you become a social media company, you're going to do stuff for other dudes starting channels. Like that's just what's going to happen. And you'll be on this path where you start on this homestead thing, and then you realize you're making a ton of money doing this other thing. And then you help these other guys, and then you have other people, you just become a big company at that point, and you still are now able to do just the things that you want to do. But that's just the deal.
Part of my mitigation strategy is it overlays with some of what y'all are talking about, but also is a brick and mortars area. Because what I have envisioned is, like, there's a farm store down the way and they're not doing great. Okay, maybe I buy it. Maybe I turn that because they have no organic products in there. So they're missing 80% of the people that move into this area. So maybe you provide that. Or, it might also be a place where the people from my YouTube audience can come and learn some skills. We're going to talk about food forests. We're going to put one in here on the property this weekend. Or we're going to have, so even if they cut off all that, people already locally know where they go to find all the things they need for permaculture. So kind of like and I got that idea hearing Andy Frisella kind of talk about how the pendulum was kind of swinging the other way, where people want a more interpersonal kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I could provide that. Not only could it be the classes where you show up out here, I'm the only name in permaculture around here. And, I'm not the only name, but in terms of a place where you can go, brick and mortars, and do all these things, I'm just trying to stretch it out to where I'm thinking, okay, with the things we say and with the things that have already happened, like, for example, what happened to Bear and the Texas boys. Bear was just on your show. They took his payment ability to make money on that. The same exact thing happened to the Texas boys. They have nowhere near the reach as Bear. It happened to me.
Happened to us 2 years ago with Shopify.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is that, and then considering it's being a political year, these things are almost certainly going to ramp up.
Yeah, it's going to ramp up. But it goes back to your 1,000 true fans, right? I can go onto YouTube and talk to 1 million people in one video. I just need 1%, right? Every night we get all these trolls and all these kids. I just need one new person every night. But it's that 1,000 true fans. If I have your email or if I have your text, it's that call to entertain, educate, equip. Capture them with the crazy, educate them with something they didn't know, and then that call to action. Join my email, join my text, send me your phone number, subscribe to my other off-platform thing so I have line of communication if this one gets banned. That's why we try to get everybody to merge over. But it's that 1,000 true fans. I send a text message out every night that goes to about 5,000 people. I send an email. Amanda sends an email out 3 times a week, and we have about 125,000 people on that list right now. I own those names. Whether they shut me down or not, I still have that revenue coming in. Jack, I always talk about Spearco had that guy talks about the dude that does the aquarium stuff. He just did he was working at a fish store, put up a few videos about individual fish, kind of got busy. They moved. He shut his channel. He didn't post anything for like a year. Came back and he had 20,000 subscribers. He only had 1,000 when he left, 20,000 on dormant videos sitting there, started putting videos up. And he said, I realized I don't want to be a fish guy, but I love fish. So he started branding fish filters and filter floss and charcoal. And he's like, I need that 1,000 true customers. Can you get 1,000 customers? Can you provide enough value that 1,000 people will give you $1 a month through Patreon? And if you can get $1 a month from 1,000, can you get $5 from 1,000? $5,000 a month is more than most people in the United States make in their entire lifetime. They're not going to make $5,000 a month. Most people, that's the average person. But if I can get 100,000, can I get $1 from 100,000? And it doesn't have to be 10%, $10 from 10% of them. But that's the numbers. Like that's the business numbers that have always worked. And I always used to joke, I'm like, man, we've been doing this before the internet. And when I stopped and thought about it, we really were doing it. We did it the hard way. Everything we're doing today, it's all simple. The answer to everything. I literally text out a message. Nicole's been on a few of them. I'll text a message out at 1 a.m. I'll tag 15 people. And by the morning, I've got answers from all of them around the world. Everything is seamless now. It doesn't matter where they block us. We're maneuvering everywhere.
Touche.
It is a mindset for sure. Something that impressed me when I first met John in person, it was during 2020, was that he already knew what he'd do if the postal system stopped working.
That was the biggest
He was
fear.
like, this is how we're going to retool. This is how we're going to support people. This is the work they can do. This is how we will instantly pull a trigger and go local.
Yeah. I have people that move. Most of my male employees all moved here from other states. So how do we continue to support them? That's why we brought in the row house. That's why we brought in the aquaponics. That's why we brought in that log splitter. If postal service closed down, we would farm. Like we would just deal with immediate, people in the area. Like if they came in and said, you have to shut down, this isn't essential. We were already building masks. We were building thousands of masks and shipping them all over the United States. That would have made us essential. If they came in to say, hey, you have to shut down, we had gates. You weren't even going to get on the property to tell us to shut down.
See, John, I think your model is especially beautiful right now, where it seems like everything is falling apart. Look on the bright side, bro. With all that special operations equipment you have over there, it looks like they're doing everything humanly possible to kick off World War III. So you might want to you might want to put back a whole lot of gear, because I got a feeling folks in the coming months are probably going to need it.
Yeah, let's hope we don't need it at home. That's what I'm more interested in. I don't care what's happening in Ukraine. I don't care what Russia's doing. I don't care about Israel. I deal here, right? People are always like, did you donate money? No, I didn't donate money. I didn't make a post telling all of you that I donated a bunch of money either. I help people where I can see what the money does. Like, we're going to put money into the immediate community. We're going to help people. I'm sure everybody's got a neighbor whose house burnt down. Why aren't you over there helping them? Why are you making posts on media about how you sent some money over to some other place where they built a well? They're shitting in those wells. That's what happens with the wells we build out over in other countries. As soon as you leave.
And that immediate action puts you responsible for the outcome to some extent, which is, it's part of the mindset challenge we face in this country, where we've outsourced the helping of people through taxes. So now we don't have to care about the person next door who actually needs our help today.
Yeah, it gives you that instant gratification. You feel good that you did this thing without actually having to show up and do anything. Everybody wants to, jump onto Bear's thing and be a part of it. I didn't see none of you guys out there in Kentucky. Like, if you like, that's Bear's selection process. People don't realize that. Show up to a tornado and assist. That's where all them dudes came from. That nobody sent Bear an email like, hey, I really like what you're doing. Can I come be part of your community? It's selection, man. You got to show up. You got to put in the work.
Yeah, it's either get loose or get lost. But
Yeah.
we're a society, a guy with a lot of sense once said, that knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. And when you get down to brass tacks, that's where, going back to Bear, that's where that's where he's going to find out the value. Did you step up to the plate? First of all, everybody's wanting to get into not everybody, but a whole lot of people are hitting me up. How do I find my community? How do I get my tribe? John, you just told him right there. See what you can do in your own doggone community. You got a guy the house burned down, the barn blew away, the animals are out, the cows are loose, whatever the case may be. You could start right there and then work your way out from there. Or instead of waiting for somebody else, like William and the Texas boys down in East Texas, where we lived before we moved to North Carolina. So William has our land back there, and he's doing some really cool things with it, turning it around, doing some wonderful things. Well, there was never a community. If it wasn't that part of Texas, they will eat hot dogs every night as long as they could drive a brand new truck. Well, they went out there, and I'm not even joking. I'm dead serious. Well, they said, okay, how do we get a mutual assistance group kicking? Okay, instead of everybody else saying, I wish somebody would do this, I wish somebody would put this together, they put it together. And now they're getting record numbers to show up. And it's like a place where they can all kind of either commiserate to some extent, but also find out like, I see that guy over there, John. Oh, hey, there's that Nicole. You know what? I think I'm gonna go over there and have a conversation with them. Maybe they want to go out for coffee sometime, or maybe I can come over and help them out, because they look like they're going to do stuff. They look like they're doers. So that's how it begins. Just go out there, do a meetup on, they got a meetup app for crying out loud for the craziest things.
Yeah.
Go out there, create a meetup, and from there, see how you can get a community kicking.
Man, everybody's missing people. You can't get enough employees, you can't get enough labor, and everybody with a homestead at some point needs help. When you show up and you're like, I have equipment, I have muscle, and I have manpower. When you need something, you call us, we will show up. And when you do that a few times, you build friendship, you build community, and that's where loyalty comes from. And it works both ways. Every relationship has to get something of value. You just have to identify what that is that you want and what it is that they expect. And if it all goes one way, then it's not ever going to last. But
the best thing.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the best thing that can happen in that situation is something goes wrong while you're doing something, and you have to figure out how to fix it together.
Yeah,
that is the best thing for building real relationships.
Anytime you get 10 people together on a project, there's only 2 of them doing anything. Be the dude that shows up and does it. Like every time, if you got 10 dudes building whatever it is they're building, 8 of them are standing there doing nothing.
John, to that point, that's what blew me away when I worked on 2 different earth ships, one of them out in Arizona and the other in Tennessee, not far from you guys. And I was like, I was frustrated the first week I was there because I'm going there with the mindset, like, I'm going to make myself a hand. They're going to remember my name when I walk away from here. I'm the oldest guy out here, and I'm going to put foot to butt. That was my mindset when I went in there. And then I'm in there with a bunch of hippies. Most of them are high, whatever. And I was like, dude, this ain't no way on earth this thing's ever going to get built. But it got built because, number one, I did make myself memorable. I showed up every single day, ready to work, on time, took the breaks when the people from Earthship took their breaks. And so I was somebody they remembered. So then when it was all said and done, they were like, hey, dude, if you ever want to come work for us, we'll pay you next time. And I'm like, nobody else got that claim. Nobody else. Mm-hmm. I made not only that, I was like, okay, well, I have a work ethic and I'm going to show off. But even still, with half the people showing up on any given day, that thing still got built, and it got built in record time. And then when I went to the one in Tennessee, there seemed to be a group of people out there who had a much better work ethic, and they put that thing together even faster. So I wasn't the guy that stood out necessarily. There was 4 or maybe 5 of us, including Michelle, that were actually showing up, doing the work, getting it done. But like you said, those are the people you remember. I didn't go to them with my hat in my hand asking for a job. When it was all said and done, they were coming to me and they said, hey, dude, anytime, because you got to pay a tuition to show up on one of their jobs. They're like, dude, you never pay again. In fact, when you show up to another one, we're going to pay you. And I was like, okay, man, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. And it's precisely what you talked about, John. Like I said, I'm a 52-year-old man at that time on the job, and I'm out working everybody that is under me. But it was the same way when I was younger trying to get into the butcher's trade. I couldn't get my way back then. Now it's kind of a hipster thing to become a butcher. You know, you wear the this and that, and you kind of go out there. It's a hip thing. But back in the day when I got into the trade, it was a very people were reluctant to let you in the door until finally I said, look, I went to the local pig in Kansas City. They'll tell you I showed up there and I'm by far the oldest person there. And I said, look, I want to learn the trade. And they're like, nah. I said, look, I will work for free. They're like, yeah, whatever. Oh, give me your number. I gave them my number. They didn't call back. And so I show up again and said, hey, look, man, I wasn't kidding. They said, well, dude, we didn't call you because we thought you were, who works for free? I'm like, I do. I just want to learn this trade. I said, look, I'll tell you what, don't even make me a butcher. Let me sweep the floor. Yep. And I promise you, I'm going to sweep this floor better than anybody you ever seen. And it started that way. Nobody would let you in that trade. Like I said, it was very, very hard. The most awesome thing, and I still get a little choked up when I think about it. Finally, I was going in there one day a week because I was working for the government at the time, and I worked on a 4-10 schedule. So I had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off typically. And so I was like, dude, every day that I'm off. Now, what is the premium time for most people? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. When you don't have anybody that wants to work, you call me. And I said, better still, I got so much vacation time saved up, even during the week. If there's ever a day you need help, call me. I will take off. I will use my vacation time to come here because I want to learn this. Like I said, we got Michelin star chefs that became butchers, and they are calling me up like, hey, Billy, you want to learn how to make sausage today? Yup. all right, calling in tomorrow because I can do that in the government. I'm calling in. I ain't coming in. And then, hey, Billy, you want to know how to do charcuterie? Yep. So there was one day, and this is when I knew I was doing things right. Nobody's ever paid me. In fact, they got to the point where they felt guilty that I was working for free. So they would pay me in meat, which was worth more to me than the money that they were paying the employees there, because the meat they were charging was premium. So they're paying me in 10 pounds, 15 pounds of meat, whatever I wanted, I'm walking out of there with to feed my family that entire week. But then there was one day, Mongo, the guy who ran the place, he is pissed off from the feet up. And he's like, look, I want to know why the oldest guy who doesn't even get paid is the hardest working employee at this place. So I walked out of there knowing everything I needed to know in record time. In 6 months, I knew more than the people that had been there 3 years that were still working a freaking cash register, because I went in there, said, I'll work for free. I'll do whatever it takes to get into the door. Now I'm the guy people go to learn how to do this sort of thing. And I had to put in my dues, and it, and just like I did with Earthship. So if anybody's out there wondering how you get your foot in the door, that's how you do it. And Joel, it's funny because Joel talks about it in his books as well.
Yeah, you just got to show up and add value, man. I've hired guys. We have dudes, people come here all the time. Hey, are you hiring? I'm like, yes, we'll put you on a sewing machine. Oh, I'm not. I just wanted an application. Those people never come back. I've hired guys that come in here once a week for a year and ask for a job. And that dude worked here for 13 years after that. If you want to work here, like you'll even if they tell you no, walk out in the parking lot, pick up all the trash, put it in a bucket, leave the trash at the door. They will know somebody picked up the trash. They'll know who that guy was. Walk in the building and take all the trash cans and empty them out. Don't say anything. Don't ask. Just take all the trash out. Go. There's always something that you can. What are you doing? I'm taking the trash out. I'll do
a recurring theme that's been coming from our community this year has been people who want to do something, but need somebody to do it with them because they think they can't go it alone. So I would say, I think every presentation I've given this year, Billy, has been, this is how you can do it alone. Because what happens when you start doing it alone and start communicating about what you're doing alone, and I'm actually looking at Take the Ride 23 is in here, who has started doing things alone. People do eventually show up, and the right kind of people show up. But if you don't start, then nobody believes that you really will accomplish the thing. So start it alone. It'll be slower than you envisioned. It will be harder than you thought it was going to be, but you'll be doing something rather than wishing you were doing something.
That guy Mongo I was telling you about that ran the whole place, how, I didn't know this until later. He and I are friends. You know how he got on board? He's like a big 6'10" dude, and he's walking by. They were just putting the shop together. Didn't know the first thing about butchery, didn't know any of that stuff. He literally walked in off the street, says, what are y'all doing here? And he's talking to the chef who actually owned the place at the time. And he says, well, we're going to have a local, old-fashioned, back in the day, they used to have a butcher shop in every neighborhood. That's what we're going to have right here. Clean food, straight up the best we can source. And then all he says to that guy, he says, okay, it's when are you opening? He says, we're hoping next month or so. He says, I'll tell you what, I'll be here on Monday. We'll talk about what you owe me. He said, I'll be here on Monday, and we'll talk about what you owe me by the time the week's over. So that's how he got in the front door. And he's like, okay. So here it is. He runs this place, world famous, does butchery stuff all over the planet. Last I knew, he was in Vietnam doing stuff or training with those guys, in Italy. And he's used that as a way for he and his wife to do some pretty cool travel, where now he runs this butcher shop, the most prestigious butcher shop in the Midwest. And here he is in Kansas City. He and his wife, he does little exchange programs where he'll bring in a guy. He wants to go, hey, honey, where do you want to go? Let's go to Italy. Okay. So we're going to reach out to a butcher shop in Italy. We're going to send over 2 people to come work at our place, and we're going to go to Italy for 2 weeks. And that's how he does. He does the same thing in Vietnam, did the same thing in France, you name it. So they've even been able to kind of bankroll this sort of thing to do some pretty cool world traveling. And at the same, they'll make it a party with a purpose. And that's one cool thing that y'all do at the Self-Reliance Festival. I view it as a party with a purpose. You're going to go there. You're going to meet people you never knew that was going to be that you would ever meet. And it's funny because every time I've gone there, I met somebody that's within an hour of me.
Always.
Didn't know that they exist.
Always, yeah.
Yeah,
So
always.
you go out there, you learn something, and then you have that cool thing where it's always in the back of John's shop where, don't ask me how, but every single time the conversation will go from whatever it was to everything from, is the world flat? Is it round? What happened on 9/11? Every single time. And you know what, John? It must have been addictive because every single homestead festival I go to, I swear every single time in the downtime, that's exactly where the conversations go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited this time. The announcement we'll have this week about Self-Reliance Festival is that there will be a children's program. Becky,
wow.
the Toolman Tim's wife, Becky, who runs daycares, agreed
That's the way to do
just
it.
a couple days ago to do it. So that's something. And we have a family pass now. So it has changed quite a bit since you were here.
Okay, so are the kids I mean, I'm curious to see how this unfolds because honestly, John's place is perfectly set up for something of a petting zoo as far as, I mean, it's not meant to be that way, but it's set up perfectly because the kids are all contained in that area. They can't get into anything stupid. They're well contained, but man, I can't think of a better way of for use in that area, especially for a lot of city slickers that have never seen anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John has some dogs kids should not touch, of course.
Yeah, she runs a bunch of daycares, so she's like super good. Like she's doing franchise daycares, but she actually runs a couple of them still. They're doing big stuff. They actually just bought property maybe 30 minutes from here. They're in and out of Canada all the time.
Oh, so they're actually getting on the, well, then if I had a nickel for all the Canadians I know that are looking to move south, they're actually looking to jump over the US and go to Mexico.
I have 2 of them in the shop right now. I've been working here for 6 months.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
About a year ago, I reached out to Rebecca and she just came up with this whole like self-reliance / homesteading related curriculum that we could roll out. And
it's so cool.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be fun. We're going to talk to, I've been talking to some folks at Midwest Preparedness just about what they do too. So we'll see. I don't know exactly what the program is till next week, basically.
Bobby is a genius at all that stuff. I've known Bobby for years, and I mean, he thinks so far outside the box, and he's able to do some pretty awesome, profitable. I used to be the MC at all their events back when I lived in Kansas, and it was truly amazing what he could take and create. And he's got years and years of doing it. So I've gotten so much awesome advice from Bobby over the years. So if that's who you're talking to, I can't think of a better person to get a lot of this stuff worked out.
Yeah, he's actually RMC in October.
Spags for people that don't know who Bobby is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spags Unlimited. Boy, I mean, to really see his growth over the years and to see, I mean, all of us really, it's amazing because one of the most offensive things you could ever say to me is you ain't changed a bit. If I haven't seen you in because I know you're lying. And I guarantee if I were to, I would say the same about both of you. You're probably, I think if you took it a self-assessment, you're probably not the same person you were even 6 months ago. Would I be wrong?
No, not at all. And you're definitely a little fatter than you were. So
no, I'm actually not. I just haven't shaved, bro.
I'm messing with you. I never said
you this 6-pack.
I never said that the first time.
Do I need to show you this 6-pack? Don't see. Okay, there's a little bit of flap down here, but it's coming.
I see it.
Yeah.
I see it.
Let me go ahead and let's do this side. Even obliques, a little bit of chub down here. But hey, you know what? I'm working on myself constantly, and I'm going to make myself as hard as woodpecker lips before this summer's out. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to do.
Farm fit.
Farm fit works, man.
Well,
I've got a question here. Does anybody have a recommendation for an old school reel mower?
Somebody asked me that yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Awesome.
So you're talking no electricity is what he's talking
push
about.
Ones.
So
get one that self-sharpens.
Yeah, they have some new ones out. They're about $600 that are like a modern day version of that. I do see the old ones, and every single time I see one, I'm like, Amanda, I'm getting you your Mother's Day present. And we pull it out and they run, man. If you see those things in antique stores, and most of them still function. You could definitely clean those up.
That's what I was going to say. I've seen them at estate sales a time or two.
Antique stores, yeah, flea markets.
Yep. Yeah, those things are always, man, it always freaked me out though. And probably, I keep going back. Harry Truman used to actually cut the White House lawn. People don't realize that. That's how he got his exercise, is that he would walk up and down. And I was thinking, dude, I don't know why, but as a kid, I always thought it seemed so doggone dangerous. But, it's not dangerous unless you're moving.
Yeah.
That's out into the thing. But,
Yeah, as soon
Just
as I
don't
got to
run it
grandma,
over your foot, Billy. You'll be fine.
as soon as I got
While
to
you're
grandma
grounding.
and grandpa, as soon as I got to my grandparents' house, I'd pull that thing out and just mow grass with it. It was the best toy.
That's what I used for years to mow between my beds because it doesn't throw grass as far. But I do know the modern ones that are expensive. I don't know a specific brand that I agree with that also do the self-sharpening of the blades are easier to use than a refurbished antique one that I had. Like I used two different ones, and for sure they have figured out ways to improve that, or it's just in better shape than one that was rusty in a yard and then got unrusted. And I would just say try it. If it's a $600 one and you don't want to spend $600, go find somebody that has one and go try it.
Let me give you another option. Oh, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
Reel mower, REEL, Reel. Just put that into your search engine. You will find a ton of them. Online Lowe's has at least 10 different versions that I'm looking at right now.
Let me give you another option. Let me give you a permaculture option. Instead of out there mowing, consider using your animals.
Sheep.
Yes, sheep are perfect. I mean, you're not going to, and the cool thing about sheep is that if you have people over, unlike a cow, I know cows, everybody loves cows and whatever, but I guarantee a breeding pair of sheep will produce way more meat, way more milk, way more everything. And plus, if you have people over, the liability of somebody getting stomped by a sheep is pretty doggone low. So, but here's one cool thing I would ask you to employ. The whole notion of a lawn came as a result of Sir Francis Bacon. He wrote a book called the New Atlantis. I think I got that right. But anyway, he was a contemporary of Shakespeare. The only reason we have lawns right now is because it was a way for royalty to say, I've conquered nature. Look at this perfectly green thing. That's why we have monocrops. It all came as a matter of trying to make nature submit to our will. So instead of going out there with a mower, unless you just have to, consider using animals. And also, a mower, the problem with a mower is that it mows the ground too low. Look, in the time I've met you guys, I've got my microscope certification, same with Michelle. And I can look at your soil under a microscope and I can tell you what's good, what's bad, and how to make it better. 9 times out of 10, if you don't have that cover from that grass over there, if your ground is being Kentucky fried, I guarantee your compaction is high, your bacterial level is way too high, and you have almost no fungus in the soil. The longer you keep that grass.
30-degree difference when you cut that stuff down. If I run a mower, I mow at 5 inches. That's as high as it will go. When I mow, I like to mow then at 3 and then at 2 so that it's nice and groomed. I haven't mowed in probably 2 years, and all that stuff that we call weeds, when you start running it through the app and you look at it, it all has medicinal properties. And when you look at it as medicine, like I'm telling you, Amanda took these different things out of the backyard and tinctured them and put them in salves and rubbed them on me for 6 months before we ever said anything, or she even printed a label for this stuff. The pain salve she makes, it works like for real. And it came right out of the backyard. I used to mow that stuff down. I'd spend 2 days mowing everything. And now, we got the sheep tractor, we got the sheep, and then we run rabbits and we run the chickens behind the sheep. Man, it works. And also, not only does it work, it fertilizes everything. When we do a drone shot of the property, you see where we just moved the birds from, and it's almost dirt. And then as it goes back, you can see every 30-day block where we moved it. And it's like it went from 9 volts to 20 volts to 100 volts. It just gets brighter and brighter and brighter and lusher and lusher. And we have grass here now. We didn't plant grass here. We have and it's not really grass. It's like barley and, things that you could mow that look like grass, but our animals eat them and they have a nutritional value to them.
And you know what else you're going to do by doing what you're doing is that no matter where you live, you're feeding the soil, but you got natural seeds in your seed bank that cannot make themselves known until the condition improves.
Yep.
So you're going to have things that pop up in there eventually, year after year after year, that you didn't know were there, but were always there, but they couldn't express themselves until the soil improved itself. And what John described is how you turn dirt to soil. It can be done, and it's not rocket science.
Yeah, we've dumped thousands of dump trucks over the years of wood chips. So we've got topsoil up top. We put in, I don't know, 60 feet rows, 60 by 20 of sunflowers this year. I've got pumpkins and watermelons out there. We're still putting stuff in. Every week we're putting in more stuff. I just put out, I think there's 60 hay bales there that we just put some bags of cheap topsoil on top, and we planted those things, and they're all growing like crazy. And the beauty of it is that next year that will all be rotted down and it'll be part of the soil, and then we'll plant on the soil next year.
Yeah,
I can tell you
really
the
awesome.
pasture we started the sheep on 2 years ago used to grow all the stuff the sheep were not supposed to eat, like milkweed and whatnot. Most of that stuff isn't growing there anymore after two years of rotation.
Yeah.
There's some, like, we're still getting poison hemlock, but it like way less.
The best example you can provide is, have you ever, well, I'm not going to ask a rhetorical question. I'm going to say it straight. You will never, ever, ever see a thorn or thistle grow out of a good compost pile. Because the only reason that weed is there, and what we call them typically is a pioneer species, it's only there because you got too much of something or too little of something. It's nature's way of trying to heal it until it, and then like you described there, Nicole, those things that some people call invasive or problems, they will disappear as you do the right thing on your soil. So it'll make that transition. But I got to say, y'all, with the new stuff that we're armed with right now, we went through Dr. Elaine Ingham's course, and it ain't cheap. I mean, nothing worth having is, I mean, if you want to go through that course, it's going to cost you, for the basic course, $5,000. But I'm telling you what, I am seeing, and I've displayed it on my YouTube channel to a degree, because I haven't gone full hog on this because I really don't think people would believe me. But we are doing in one season what it would ordinarily take us 3 years to do, by learning how to make compost extract and making that stuff so turbocharged that we're seeing recovery in areas where, okay, usually let's say it's an area with vines, thorns, thistles, all the things you don't want. You're going to deal, as you improve that, you're going to constantly be dealing with that for usually a minimum of 2 to 3 years. We are seeing it gone in 6 months because we're turbocharging nature and we're making this extract out of it and we're spraying it out. It is truly astonishing. It ain't for everybody, but it is really otherworldly. And all we're doing is marshaling the microorganisms, putting them in higher concentration, sticking them out there, and making an environment where we don't find it enjoyable.
I need to build massive compost. Like, we've tried to buy compost guys are weird. We found several places out of Nashville, like doing like what seemed to be legit compost. And I'm like, I'll pay you whatever the load costs, plus I'll pay your driver a couple extra $100 every load he brings out. They're like, yeah, we'll do that. They never showed up. Like, we had all these long email chains and everything, and they just would go silent. We've never had compost delivered here. I just need to just make our own, I guess. Like, but I need tons of it.
Well, here's how you can make, you don't necessarily need tons of it. This is one of the beautiful things about it. If you're just putting straight compost over there, yeah, you need tons of it. But we've learned to take the microorganisms, the nematodes, the protozoa, the bacteria, the fungi, and we put them in an aqueous form in the water. So we strip them away from the compost. And so one bucket, using Elaine's method, Dr. Ingham's method, if it's made properly, one bucket is enough. 1 5-gallon bucket is enough to treat an entire acre. So you can take some really turbocharged kind of stuff like I have and bring rejuvenation to an area that is undreamed of with using a fraction of the compost. But going back to your point regarding all these compost, we did a video on it, and I know we made some enemies on this one, some of them local. We did a video we put under the microscope and tested every single bagged compost you can get on the market right now. I mean, everything we could find.
A lot of it's dead.
Exactly. There was not a single one of them. In fact, that black cow stuff, y'all, I'm going to tell you straight, it was absolutely hydrophobic. You couldn't even put it in a test tube to test it. It was that bad.
I find a ton of the bags of stuff we buy are actually the opposite. If it's super heavy, guys, it's rotted, like it's anaerobic. It's so full of water that when you open it, if it stinks, there's something wrong with that stuff. Like if you open it and there's little bugs and flies coming out of there, it's not going to do what you want it to do.
Rachel says, I'll take Jack Spirko over Elaine Ingham. Let me tell you a little something. I endorse Jack's program. That's how good it is. Yep. Jack is a flipping genius. And I even said, and Jack used it, I think, as a promotion for his thing, where I said, Jack teaches you, first of all, for a fraction of the money. Now, I don't know that he teaches you how to do compost extract or compost teas. There are a difference between the two. I don't think he does that. But I openly endorsed Jack, and I said, Jack teaches you for a fraction of the money, and B, a fraction of the time. He basically made a Cliff Notes version that is astonishing. And I absolutely endorse what Jack's doing.
I'm about halfway through that course right now. It's really well done from here's the big picture and all of the details to do it, quote unquote, right. I've taken away things and simplified it. And he does go into the difference between the tea and the extract. Another person to check out is Stephen Reisner from Potent Ponics, because that's exactly what he's doing. He's using the Korean natural gardening methods, but he's talking about how to create the extract and use it to completely transform not only your fields, but if you're doing aquaponics, it can manage diseases that come up in aquaponics systems without any chemicals. So places where they've found E. coli in like large commercial scale places, they've used beneficial bacteria to clean that out and not had to kill the system and bleach it, which is really fascinating.
Isn't that EM?
It's
something microbe.
No, he used he does talk about that, but for that particular thing, it's LB, lactobacillus, which is like your byproduct of cheese.
Lazy Gardner. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is he speaking at SRF?
He's speaking at SRF, yeah. On that.
Lazy Gardner addressed something you said a minute ago, John, and this is of profound importance. Lazy Gardner, it's probably better to make your own acclimate the biology or microbiology to your conditions. To that point, here's how important that is. Let me ask y'all, who's going to better survive in the North Pole? An Eskimo or a Panamanian? An Eskimo. Who's going to better survive at the equator? A Panamanian or an Eskimo? I know that's not politically correct. Or an Inuit, okay? Probably the Panamanian. Well, the same exact things, when you buy that stuff in a bag, or like John, you were talking about buying some from another place.
Yep.
The microbes in your place, and I can prove it under the microscope. The microbes that are going to do well at your place are better sourced at your place because they're already acclimated to that. The ones that you get from some compost that came from wherever, and if anybody hasn't watched it, watch the documentary called Biosludged by Mike Adams. If you're buying it from municipalities, you better think twice about that stuff, because they're putting them on a lot of farm fields, and now they're super fun sites. So if you can make that compost as local as possible, like let's say the stuff I'm making up here in the mountains, if I brought it to Nicole or John at their place, it'll do well the first season until it gets cold, because it's used to my conditions. That's why compost as best you can to find it as local as possible. But John, even those compost dealers, we've tested everything we could. And here's what they do. Because I'm able to look at it under the microscope and verify it. What they do, it's either all bacteria, there's zero fungi in every single bag, then there can't be, because the bags are all closed up. There's no way for those microbes to breathe. If you mail me a soil sample to test, you have to send it in a Ziploc with air in it, and you have to next day air it for it to even be viable for me to look under the microscope.
Good point.
So,
yeah.
if it's been sitting out there in the sun on a pallet for days and days and days, if you don't have moisture in that bag, adequate moisture, it's going to turn to cyst. It's going to go to its dormant state. It's not going to be good. But what they're doing, even the NPK, we're looking for soil life, but even the nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus in all those bag soils, every one of them, not one of them panned out. And if anything, when we look at it under a microscope, they do what's called a nematode infusion. They put a bunch of nematodes, which okay, which is basically your top predator, but under a worm in the soil. So you put a bunch of lions in the savannah with no deer to eat or no gazelles to eat, whatever they eat. That's what they're doing out there. And so you get soil that's denuded of life. They give it a little bit of NPK, so you're right back to the trough a year later. But if you grow really good compost, and if you don't do something stupid, like putting a bunch of chemicals on it, you never have to. It's a gift that keeps on giving. All you got to do is keep adding a little bit more mulch every year, a little bit more. You don't need to add much. And it's now a self-licking ice cream cone. That's exactly what we want in these systems. So, sorry, I don't mean to monologue so much about this. Is why I'm teaching that course out there at our festival, because once you understand, and I'm telling y'all, I've devised a way of teaching composting that is so simple that will absolutely, now Jack's is probably simpler. Jack's is probably even better in the long term, but mine can be done in under a month. So there is the difference. But Jack's, I mean, look, y'all, if anybody's looking to create some division between me and Jack Spirko, Jack is one of the smartest dudes I've ever met in my life. And he is an absolute autodidact.
I don't think that.
I just say, why not both, Billy? Why not both?
Does the 1 million pumpkins guy here, does he grow pumpkins? I'm actually looking his channel. I'm not finding his channel for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey guys, I'm coming to the end of my time today, so I'm wondering if we can do a once around the horn and wrap up, or do you want to keep going without me?
Whatever you guys want to do.
No, I got to bounce myself. I actually got a compost pile I got to flip out there. So, yeah, I was going to talk to John about something offline, but outside of that, look, y'all, it was a joy. Even the Bible says, he that walks with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. I spent the majority of my life hanging around companions of fools, and it almost destroyed me. So whenever we're able to have the advantage of our joint wisdom in something like this, and the people out there can get something from it, man, it's a good day for me. So there's a lot of stuff on my power list that aren't going to get done today. But I think I'm going to count this as one of them, because it was a real joy and edifying to me to be on here with y'all. So thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Don't forget to find Billy at permapastorsfarm.com if you want to link up and figure out what this thing is that he calls bone sauce or anything else that he's working on. That's his website. John, what do you got for us?
I do a live every night at 9 o'clock. You guys can jump on my channel there. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. My real company is Special Operations Equipment. That's soetacticalgear.com. We do nylon tactical gear. Hopefully you never need it. We also do lifestyle gear and backpacks and stuff. We do a different t-shirt every Monday. Every week we do a different design. So 52 a year, 56, however many weeks, I don't know. Other than that, I'm everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And if you reach out, it's usually me that actually talks to you.
Hey, can I add something to that real quick? For years and years and years, I've always used ammo pouches to carry my Leatherman and my knife. I've never, ever, ever had one last more than 6 months until I bought them from you, John. And that's where this came from. I bought 3 of them from you, and I'm still on the first one, and I've had this one for 2 years. And there is, like I said, I wear the other ones out to no end. This one looks like it just came out of the box. So, I don't know what you're doing with this nylon out there. I put it on my belt. I wear it every single day. And this is the only one, even though it cost probably 2 or 3 times more, but I would have replaced the other ones. I would have bought 4 other ones off the shelf at Cabela's in the time that like I said, I bought 3 of them from you, and I haven't even gotten anywhere close to breaking in the one I got from you. So you make some fantastic stuff, homie.
You know how they always say they don't make them like that anymore? We still make it that way. We've made it the same way we have I started this company 35 years ago when I was 17 years old, and we still make it exactly how we made it. We still make them that way.
It shows.
Yeah, That makes a big difference. Okay, guys, while we were on today, we talked about time management and the homestead, and something that I heard Joel Salatin say when he was at Self-Reliance Festival was he just explained the process where when he's working with farm hands, they have a 20-minute project board. So when they finish a big project, it's not lunchtime yet, they can take one of those and knock it out. And I became aware that he has an entire time management system that he employs on his farm. Well, he's coming on to my webinar series at Living Free in Tennessee next week to do an hour-long webinar. It's $45.
Oh,
Or
cool.
if you're one of my members, it's included with your membership, which is $50, and you get multiple webinars. So I would highly recommend, if you can, make time to check that out. I'm pretty excited about the webinar. It's livingfreeintennessee.com. And with that, we will see you guys next week. Bye.